Hey guys, welcome back to Up the Coast with Alex and Britt. And it is officially the first episode of the 2026 season. We are really excited and really happy to be back. Britt, can you believe it's already softball season?
Look, Alex, we left, what were we in Boston last time covering the ACC tournament, and then we went and did life. You're a realtor. You gotta we'll let you talk about your chickens and your ducks and all your animals. You got a farm in between last season and this season. My son turned 4. I mean, a lot has happened, but it feels like it was just yesterday. And I am so excited to get into these teams. I think this could possibly be the best season ever for the ACC. I'm going to go ahead and put that on record, and we'll get into why later on, but we'll take a quick look back at what happened last season, what to expect this season, some new faces in the ACC, and we'll make some predictions. And then my favorite segment that we're going to have this year is BS or no BS with AP, where I'm going to put some storylines that are out there and have you tell me and the people, is that BS or no BS? Then we can get to the bottom of it.
I'm excited for that one. We have no BS around here.
That's
So
right. That's right.
for sure.
Straight shooting.
But should we recap kind of, I guess, what's happened in the off season a little bit? Like, what is it that you've been up to? We'll talk a little bit about what I've been doing. You mentioned my farm. I mean, I'm always happy to talk about my animals.
Tell me about your crooked goose, your crooked duck.
Crooked duck. Yeah, definitely. We've got a flock here. So we did get 4 ducks. We've got 7 chickens. Yeah, life has been crazy. So I wish I lived on a farm. Feels like I live on a farm, but just without the land. And so we inherited somebody in our neighborhood. I do real estate. Somebody in our neighborhood got their house sold from our brokerage. And of course, I was like, hey, like if you're moving somewhere where you can't relocate your animals, I'll take your chickens. And next thing I know, we had 7 chickens. Actually, we had 10. 3 ended up being roosters.
Oh,
And so I had to rehome them. Nothing happened to them. No, nothing happened to them, luckily. But yeah, we did have to rehome the roosters because we just don't have enough property for that. People would hate us. And then had those for several months. They started laying eggs. Coolest thing ever. And next thing I know,
how many you get?
huh?
How many do you get a day?
Our chickens lay about 250 eggs a year
Per
with the breed.
chicken?
Per chicken, yeah.
Holy
For the breed that we have. I do have one chicken with a crossbeak, and that makes it hard for her to like eat normally and stuff. And I don't think she's laying, but it's hard to really tell. But yeah, it's
You get
super
her
cool.
some beak braces, right?
I do take her to get her beak shaved, which I know sounds crazy. My mom thought I was like losing my mind when I started taking my chickens to the vet. But then we got a random duck. Like we got a call. Somebody found a duckling on its own. It had just hatched, like could barely walk. And she was like, there's no other ducklings around. So like, do you want this duck? So we're like, okay, we'll take it. And ducks are companion animals, which means you have to have multiple. So next thing I knew, we had the one and then we ordered 3 more. And now we have 4 ducks. And then, of course, the duckling that we found, or we basically, saved and adopted off the street, has scoliosis and it's congenital, meaning it was born like that. So it literally has a crooked neck. And our life is crazy. So, yeah.
If you haven't seen this stuff, you need to go on her Instagram or whatever and take a look at it. It is, I don't want to offend you or Lou or
That's
the
okay.
duck, but
Yeah.
it is strange but adorable in the same way. She's so freaking cute, and I love her.
Thanks.
She's my favorite one of your flock. But if I'm going to be an animal in my next life, I hope I come to your.
Yeah, they're loved. That's what they live, a good life. And actually, she just started flying the other day too. So like it takes a little bit for them to grow. They're about 3 months old now. And so she started to fly, and I just hope she doesn't fly away.
I
But
was going to ask.
she should know she lives a good life here. So I feel like
Will
we're
they
good.
fly?
I don't know. We'll see. People can clip their wings, but like I'm not about that. They need to be able to like get around and fend for themselves. So we'll
But
see.
they weren't raised that way.
I know, but she knows where she's fed, and I don't know. We'll see.
All right.
I don't know.
Come on, Lou. We're cheering for you, Lou. You got it.
I know. Life has been crazy. But yeah, so what have you been up to the last year? I know Link turned 4.
Yeah, well, I feel like I lived a whole year in the month of December. Yeah, my birthday, which not a big deal, not really into that. But then we went to Disney World for 7 days with a 3-year-old, and then my sister-in-law had her 4-year-old and 2-year-old, and I was so anxious and nervous about taking little kids to Disney. But I tell you what, it was freaking amazing. The
Yeah.
excitement they had and just to watch them. And we only had one meltdown, which was incredible. And my son's been obsessed with Disney ever since. And then we had Christmas, my anniversary, then Lincoln's birthday. He had a Mickey Mouse birthday. I'm telling you, obsessed. Today he went to
Yeah.
school with a hat with Mickey ears, a Mickey shirt, Mickey sweatshirt, Mickey pants, Mickey shoes, and a Mickey jacket. Like, he needs to grow out of this soon, but we'll live with it for now. So I feel like I had a whole extra year thrown in this past year and this past month. But now it's softball season and it's time to go here.
Yeah, so it was definitely magical. But also I did see that Lincoln got his first pair of Crocs.
Oh my gosh. Yes. And we're not a Croc family. And I picked him up from school one day and I took him to get some shoes because his feet are growing like crazy. And he saw these Crocs and he just had to have them. And Taryn hates Crocs, like despises Crocs. I'm like, this is perfect. Let's get the little jewels that go on them. Let's go all out. And she was not thrilled, but they are a very convenient shoe to have with a 3-year-old running or going to the pool, going outside, slide those suckers on. He's got his little Hot Wheels on them. I mean, I still don't think she's a fan. I'm not necessarily a fan, but for convenience,
We're here for it. Yeah. I feel like the older I get, the more I want to live a life that's like convenient and things are easily maintainable. And that's just where I'm at. So
yeah,
I feel that.
I agree.
But all right. So you mentioned that this year is going to be probably, right? We're forecasting here, putting it out in the universe. The most successful ACC softball year yet. But let's take a look back at 2025 because I do feel like it was pretty memorable as well.
Yeah.
So what sticks out to you most about last season?
Well, I think like you said, it's important to look back. We talked to Lonnie last year. I don't know if it was on podcast or we were just conversating with her. Going into the season, she said that back in the fall with a new group coming in, the first thing they were going to do was watch the game from last year. And I don't know if you've ever experienced this. I've been around a bunch of different programs playing, associated coaching, and we never did that. It was like new year, new season, new team, let's move forward. But I got to thinking about it. It is so important to look back and see how that season ended because you just can't, it's not a whole new team. You still have a core group there. So I thought that was really cool when Lonnie said that. And I think it could benefit a lot of teams too, instead of just moving on and pretending like things didn't happen because there's only one team that ends their season on a win every season. Yeah. So looking back, I thought postseason was incredible for softball as a whole. And we had 2 teams make it to supers. And there are 2 teams that I thought really had a great chance of making it to the World Series, which is Florida State and Clemson. But unfortunately, they ran into the 2 teams that played for the national championship. Clemson went against Texas. Florida State went against Texas Tech. And I thought Clemson was going to pull that one out. They won the first game against Texas 7-5, then lost game 2 in 10 innings, and then came up and lost by 1 run in that 3rd inning against the national champions, soon to be national champions. And I think they made some errors, 4 errors in the last 2 games, just not the cleanest they could have played, but I think they put on a great show. And then Florida State ran into Najee Kennedy, and I don't think they played their best ball. I remember a bunch of base running errors and, the people you think would step up in those big moments just didn't happen. But to me, I thought it was a great showing. But at the end, it was very disappointing that nobody was in Oklahoma City.
Yeah, definitely. Because, of course, the ACC success hopefully gets us to Oklahoma City, and we love to cover the teams and get them more exposure. But yeah, I mean, if you're going to go out, at least go out with a bang and against the 2 top teams in the country competing for the Natty. And yeah, there was a lot to look back on it. And I like what you mentioned about Lonnie with what coaches said about kind of looking back to where we were. And I feel like to appreciate where you're going, you've got to appreciate where you've been and kind of understand it a little bit, right? And I think reflection is a great way to do that and just trying to keep building for the future because you want to get better and better. And that's what they say. Like, we're always so busy looking ahead at what's to come and everything else, but like, let's look back and see how far we've come because sometimes that's pretty impressive too,
Yeah, because it's super easy to be like, all right, that season happened. We made stupid face running mistakes and we made these errors and we just forget about that. But if you don't ever address it, how you're going to be in that same situation again, how are you going to get better from that? It's human nature. At least for me, that's really good at compartmentalizing and trying to forget things that I don't like. And I really thought that was a cool little story that she shared with us among the many that she has. But we also had teams that made it to regionals. I think, to me, the biggest disappointment was Duke hosting a regional and losing at home to Georgia. That was tough. And then UNC went to a barbecue in Knoxville. I'm going to say that UNC, they've gotten back to where they're going to be a postseason team, and now we need to see some more from them. Yeah, I think the expectation this year is let's go to a regional, let's make it to a regional final. We've got to take that next step. And then Georgia Tech going down to Florida to a barbecue to FAU and Mercer, which I don't think was the expectation from them. I think they're still building. They're going to be a postseason team. And then Virginia Tech in that Alabama series had Lindley and Mazarown each start a game, but they dropped the one-run games to Alabama. And that Stanford, oh my gosh, do you remember that Stanford's with Oregon to go to
Yeah,
Silvers? I mean, I thought for sure because they were going to match up with Liberty to go to
I know.
the World Series, and they won that first game 14-1, and we're like done in. And but then their pitching problems came and lost 15-5 and then 7-10. And then we had Virginia and Cal each go to regionals last year. So we had a good showing in the postseason, but I think the onus is on middle part. The top of the ACC is really good.
Mhm.
The middle has gotten a whole lot better. And I think it's time for them. We're going to see them take that next step.
Yeah, even talking about postseason and what was last year, I have chills as you're kind of going back through all that. Cause yeah, like we were just like hyped up and just watching everything kind of unfold. Of course, it didn't always work out in our favor with the ACC, but it's really fun to watch the journey. And, you know, games are starting this week and it's going to be crazy because of everything to come. It's going to be a really good test of where teams are in week one, but we all know that where you start isn't always where you finish, hopefully, right? Like
Well, you
the
remember
goal
Clemson
is to
last year.
get better. Yeah,
I mean, they went down to Florida and just everybody was like, what is happening with this
right,
Clemson team? And then
right.
they're one play away from being in Oklahoma City. So, how
Yeah,
you start exactly right is not indicative of how the season's going to end, but it's definitely a good litmus test to see, hey,
absolutely.
is Stanford going to fix their pitching problems? Is Duke their pitching issues they had last year? Do they have more arms? And you're going to get a good taste of that in that first week.
Yeah, and talk about reflection of 2025. Clemson, the reigning champs coming into the 2026 season, super impressed with how they got better continually throughout that last year. And they're a team now that when you look back and kind of see where they've been put to the test, they've been challenged and they've risen to the occasion. And I'm really excited to see them compete. We'll get a little bit deeper into some key players that they added, those that graduated, of course, never really helps. But of course, you got to keep building and got to keep growing. But I'm really excited to see what they do. And they were a really fun team to watch last year between them, Florida State, and that ACC championship game. I mean, that whole ACC championship tournament was insane. So many close battles. Weather was the factor. Like we were freezing our ass off. Like, I don't know. It was nuts. But so much fun. And just the adversity that these teams went through to get to where they were. Again, 2026 is going to be amazing.
Yeah, there's going to be so many different storylines. I mean, with the transfer portal and everything, with new faces, and what it's hard to kind of know what to expect. Except for, I think we can get into is Florida State. I think the expectations for Florida State are the same every year. You expect them to be a fundamentally sound team, a team that can hit, a team that plays great defense, a team with speed, a team that has a pitching staff, and they
Mhm.
do. They did graduate a couple pitchers, but they also returned Jazzy, Ashton, and McKenna, and I think
Yep.
those pitchers got a ton of work. I mean, McKenna Reed was dealing with some injuries and things
Mhm.
last year, but her previous year she got a ton of work, so definitely experienced in the circle. And then they're bringing in 3 freshman pitchers that are really notable to add to the depth in the circle with Avery Dockery. She's a two-way player. She's 6'2". And I just think a 6'2" pitcher, you don't have to be 6'2" to pitch and be successful, but I think it definitely adds some momentum in your favor there. And Marley Gaskell is one of the best pitchers in her class. Some notes on her that I read about her is that she has a really good changeup and can change speeds. And we saw how successful Jazzy was with that last year. And then Bella Dimitrijevic, yeah, she was a 2-time
Good
Gatorade
job.
Player of the Year from Illinois, plays for the Croatian national team. And Lonnie said that she will make an immediate impact in the circle. So, pitching wise, what do you think Florida State's going to look like?
Yeah, I'm excited. I mean, of course, Juju Apsell graduated last year, so kind of losing her in the circle, but then, like you said, getting 3 very viable arms. I think that one of the things that Florida State always has done well, at least the last decade, is the depth of the staff in the circle and how Lonnie and staff utilizes them, right? And I do think that the teams that have the most success through postseason are the teams that do have multiple aces. You almost have to, because the hitters are too good. They've got too much information. And I am excited to see more arms on staff for Florida State, because I do think they've been lacking the last couple of years, unfortunately, due to injury. I mean, nobody could have predicted McKenna Reed was going to go through what she did. And I mean, I'm fired up to see her this season. I hope that she's healthy. I do think that some things, like when it's back related, neck related in general, right? Like, not that that's exactly what hers is, but it's lingering, right? So it's probably going to be a battle that she's always going to have to fight. But again, how you respond, how you manage is going to be key. And I think that she probably learned a lot the last year and a half of just how to better take care of herself.
And
And
nobody can
unfortunately,
manage a pitching staff and pitching changes better
yeah,
than Coach. I mean,
yeah,
everybody looks to that model to what they want to do. So
right.
and she's not afraid to put freshmen in very important situations earlier in the year and see how they respond. And I think she still does it better than anybody else. So I'm
Completely
excited.
agree. Yeah, me too. And I think you're always just trying to kind of reload, right? And so for Florida State in the circle, I think that's where they are. I think they have reloaded. I also think it's pretty notable. And through our notes, you were very bold and in all caps that Florida State had no transfers out and no transfers in, which is super interesting with where the game is now. But I also think that's so telling of Florida State's culture too, right? Having lived it. So
Yeah, and I mean, one of the biggest things about Florida State, and another time we talked to Lonnie, she said, culture is just a buzzword that people throw around a lot. And it is, but it's also very important. She said culture is something that you do every single day. Like, she gave us the example in Spain, they have their siestas, they take naps. That's just what they do. And Florida State has really cemented what they do, what's acceptable, what kind of effort's acceptable day in and day out, and not having to reteach that to a new group and being able to trust the players that have stayed there. Yeah, hey, we got freshmen coming in. This is how we do things every day. This is what's acceptable and what's not. And I think that's half the battle when you have big transfer classes coming in. And I think that just puts Florida State a step in front of a lot of programs.
yeah, I couldn't agree more. And Florida State is coming in ranked number 1 in the ACC for polls right now with where they sit for preseason. Clemson, again, though, like so much fun to watch, did graduate a few very notable players from last year's roster. You want to get into them at all?
Yeah, I mean, the first ones you think about is in the circle with Brooke McCubbin and Reese
Yeah.
Basinger, the pitcher of the year last year. They accounted for 320 of the 409 innings pitched, which is 78% of the innings pitched graduated for Clemson last year, which is that makes you nervous going into the off season for any coach or program. But they also have now sophomore Macy Cintron, who is going to be awesome. She was awesome last year. Didn't get a ton of time in the circle, which I think is great for a freshman and two-way player. Let her figure out the offense, and she did. She was clutch,
Yeah.
reliable right there in the meat of the order. And they're bringing in a couple freshman pitchers, Lexi Hamas, Pennsylvania Gatorade Player of the Year, extra innings. I don't like to put rankings on players, whatever, but she was ranked the number 2 pitcher by them, which, she's got to be pretty decent. And then a local girl, Maddie Johnson, South Carolina, 3A Player of the Year. But then my favorite part of this is they got a couple transfers in the circle too. So they're reloading. And my favorite transfer that happened this offseason was Abby Dunning.
Yeah.
Coming in from Boston College. We fell in love with her 2 years ago in the season that she put up for Boston College. She is a dog. She is a workhorse. She throws hard. She has a great rise ball. I think bringing her in a workhorse, because every pitcher that's been at Clemson, they've had to be a workhorse, and she's got that mentality. And I think getting her together with Kyle Jamison will elevate her game, because she definitely does need an off speed. She needs something besides that screwball and rise ball. And I think that tandem is going to work great. And I think they'll pick up where they left off in the circle. I was really nervous about that, but I think Abby Dunning, she's going to do some work for him.
Yeah, I agree. And I know that that's your favorite transfer, I think, in the whole conference, just because of you were a fan of her 2 years ago and just kind of following her. Unfortunately, she had to deal with injury last year, but coming back strong, the rehab, I mean, I always say it, right? Like some of us come back our strongest after you go through those battles because you just really dive deep and it becomes a lot more serious than just a game out there on the field. Like you just have so much more heart behind you too. But when you look at the notable graduates too, like I have to acknowledge Maddie Moore. I mean, she was like the heart and soul of this Clemson team. However, they were so good at elevating the youngsters. I mean, Macy Cintron was the freshman of the year last year for the conference. And to have such a big voice, such a big presence at a young age, I feel like that was a lot of their freshmen and sophomores last year too. So while they graduated, some really key players in that senior class between Maddie Moore, Alex Brown, Abby Vieira, Brooke McCubbin, Reese Basinger, like you also had so many youngsters too that are just like vying and waiting for their chance, right? So I think that Clemson's going to have to figure out that identity piece, going to have to work through that building confidence and getting confidence out on the field. It's going to come through failure and it's going to come through success, but no better way to get it than the first couple of weeks of season. We saw it last year. How you start isn't always how you finish. So
I agree. And I think those young players you're talking about, like we saw them step up in big moments, like Taylor Pipkins and Marion Collins and Julia Noller.
Big swings.
I mean, they've been put into some pressure situations and show that they can be clutch hitters. I do want to mention one more thing on their pitching. They're also getting Sierra Manis, who was coming in from USC Upstate, and I called their regional last year, and she's a dog too. She pitched over 160 innings last year, arguably the best pitcher in the Big South. I mean, you're bringing in two workhorses in the circle, which, you know, that was a big glaring gap for Clemson, and I think they filled it really well with Abby Dunning and Sierra Manis.
Yeah, and the leadership of Coach Rittman and staff. I mean, what he does out there is extremely professional. And I know it's like, oh, yeah, they're college coaches. Of course, they're professional. But the way you conduct yourself, the way you handle things from a management perspective, I feel like he's one of the best in the game. And I really like how,
They got it right. They got it right.
Yeah.
For sure. I think the future's bright for Clemson. And you mentioned Maddie Moore being the heart and soul of the team. She absolutely was, but she allowed other younger people to lead around her. And I think that's only going to help them in the future. I think Clemson is going to make their first World Series this year.
All right. You heard it here first. Let's go. All right. Let's get into Stanford.
Okay.
Stanford was tough last year. It was like signs of brilliance, quite literally brilliant. And then it was like, what the hell? You know?
I mean, just what that series against Oregon. I mean,
yes. You're like,
you smoke them first game. And
yeah,
I think last year, huge question mark on Stanford with Nyjah transferring to Texas Tech. Like they've always had pitching, their offense, And then last year, it was their offense that was unbelievable.
Booming.
Unbelievable. Hitting bombs, playing in a football stadium and just dropping bombs all over the place.
Love the conference.
Yeah.
Love the conference.
Their pitching, though, they had two young pitchers, and it was the walks that really got them into trouble. But a year under the belt for Alyssa Houston and Zoe Prostyko, I think, really beneficial. And they're bringing in three freshman pitchers, all very notable accolades with Elena Krause, who actually her older sister Reagan Krause pitched for Stanford. So there's family tie there. She's from Illinois, from the coaches player of the year in that state. And then Ava Bulanti, pitcher from California, was the softball player of the year and WCal pitcher of the year. So she's got some accolades. And Anna Brewer, two-time Tennessee sports writer all-state team and Tennessee preseason player of the year nominee. So we've got three pitchers that have some pretty good accolades to go along with Alyssa and Zoe. So they saw a need, and I think they're going to try and fill it there because they've got some booming bats coming back this year.
Yeah, they do. And I think also one of my favorite parts about the 2026 season for Stanford is the hiring of Jolene Henderson. I feel like that was huge. And Jolene is in a league of her own with uniqueness and personality and all the things. You know her. I got to play with her in the Pro League too. One of a kind, but I think that she's going to really benefit this team. And I think one of the things that as her teammate I love most about Jolene Henderson, and she was a standout pitcher at Cal, she had good stuff. Her changeup was really good, but really what made her so talented and so successful in the circle was her mentality. The way she fought for everything, because really all she did was throw hard and soft, right? It wasn't like crazy movement. She just would dot pitches. So her command of her locations were elite, bar none. And then she could throw the changeup in any count too, and her command of that pitch as well. And I just feel like when you can beat really good hitters doing that, your mindset is a game changer. And I'm excited to see how she translates her experience and her success as a coach to these players, because you don't have to have the most dominating stuff to be dominant. And I'm really fired up about that.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting because they still have Danielle Toole on staff, who is also a great pitcher at Arizona, has a great changeup.
Yeah.
But you mentioned how she just threw hard and slow and could command her pitches. And I think you talk as a pitch caller, I don't think it's so much the pitch call, but the execution of the pitch.
Right.
If I know I'm going to call a curveball that's supposed to be on the outer half, it needs to be on the outer half. Like
Yeah.
if you can execute the pitch, no matter what I call, I think it's in a favor of the pitcher. So I think that'll be a fun thing to watch. Two great pitchers on staff. I don't see that anywhere else in the country. And then Sarah Groenwagen,
I was
who's a
just
great
going to say, yeah.
pitcher. And she just moved on. She's still at Stanford, but at director of recruiting.
Player development. Yep.
Yeah. So she
Yep.
they've got a lot of great pitching minds to help these young pitchers
Yeah, seriously.
progress. But on the other
Insane.
side, they're bringing back River Mailer, 11 home runs, Taryn Kerr, 19 home runs, Emily Jones, 9, Jade Berry, 14, Joey Economides, there we go, I
Yeah.
got it, 15, and Kyra Chan, 10 home runs. So they're bringing back some power. They've got another pitching mind. I think they're playing in their brand new stadium this year, which I think is going to be huge. I have a lot of expectations on Stanford to do really good things this year.
And you mentioned Taryn Kerr and River Mailer, both on the USA Softball Top 50 watch list for Player of the Year that comes out preseason. So again, just a nod at their success, mostly offensively and how dominant they were. Definitely hoping they can repeat those numbers this year. That'd be pretty sick. All right, let's get into Duke.
Let's do it. Let's dive in.
Let's talk about the Blue Devils. So they were our last team that we got to cover at the World Series 2 years ago, and they've been a lot of fun. They had some obstacles last year. I feel like they just went through adversity. Like I think point blank, they just had adversity. They didn't have a lot of depth in the circle. You know, Cassidy Kurt, it never came out. I don't believe that she was dealing with injury, but I feel like she had to be dealing with injury. She was limited in what she could throw, I think numbers wise. We saw it in her innings and things like that, but then they didn't have the dominant depth, that you need at this level. Like you need a couple of legit aces. And then as a coach, don't know how you do it, but you got to be able to manage them, right? To let them know like, hey, you guys are both our number ones, or maybe it's all three people as number ones, right? And just trying to navigate how you get them in and trying to utilize everybody with their strengths. But that was the hardest thing I think that Duke went through last year. And then of course, throw in some other stuff, Vega wore a knee brace for a while. So that she was dealing with some stuff with her knees. Or at least one of her knees, and then just trying to work through the rest of the kinks. Like, that's hard.
Yeah. And to have the success they did
Right.
with two arms in a circle and one maybe not 100%. I think you still need to give a nod to Danny Drugmuller, who really came in as a transfer from Pitt. I wouldn't expect her to come in and think she's going to be the number one pitcher having the most innings, and that's how she ended up. And she was, without her, they would have been a whole lot of trouble. And she graduated. But I think to have that same success with not a healthy pitching staff is pretty important to look at moving forward into this year. They're going to still have Cassidy Kurt, and we saw how great she was getting her team to the World Series, and they're going to add a couple more arms. I think the offense and just the athleticism of that team, and another year under her belt for Amina Vega and Deanna Jennings and Kyrie Rodriguez and Maya Burgess, Jada Baker. I mean, they've got some studs on offense, and I think they're going to be really hungry this year. I mean, that was disappointing to lose at home to a Georgia team that you feel like you're always playing in the postseason. So I think there's going to be an edge to that team, and they brought Jayla Wright back on staff, so she's back with the team. So I think she's going to add a little extra motivation. It's just a question mark in the circle for me.
Yeah, I completely agree. So many different things that were thrown their way last year, but you have to look back. You talked about reflection earlier. You have to look back and see kind of where they were, the areas that they needed to get better, and then figure out how they're going to improve. And you come back hungry just naturally. They did pick up some key players and some really notable transfers in. I already know, and as do you, the leadership of Coach Young and staff. She's surrounded by really successful people, successful women. Bringing back Jayla Wright on staff, I think, is huge. You're just trying to build experience from a leadership standpoint and surround yourself with people that are just as hungry. And that there's no doubt that this team is coming back hungry.
Yeah, and losing on Gold is big time. I mean, she's having incredible success right now in the pro league, but they did bring in coach's daughter, Layla Lamar from Florida. Didn't get a ton of action at Florida, so I'm excited to see how that dynamic works. I'm sure there is some interesting moments at practice, but to be able to come back and play for your mom, I think is pretty freaking cool. And then something that's not going to show up on the transfer portal for this season or transfer last year is Jessica Leonard, because she transferred the year before, midway through the season from Minnesota, and she's an All-American. Didn't get to play last season, and she's freaking good. She was a top 26 finalist in 2004 for the USA Player of the Year, batted over 458, and she just sat on the bench last year. And Coach Young would see her in the dugout and just wish she could put her in the game, but I expect Jessica Leonard to make a huge, huge impact. She's a shortstop, so Anna Gold's glove. You've got Jessica Leonard to come in behind her. I think it's going to make a huge impact. So I definitely star that name, not getting a whole lot of attention since she didn't play last year and wasn't part of this transfer class, but keep an eye on her.
Yeah, a lot of good things for Duke. They're going to have a really tough schedule. We were talking about that even before the call of just going through it. But I do want to ask Coach, and I do feel like if I had to take a bet that how Layla and Coach's relationship goes, I feel like she calls her coach on the field. Like, I can't imagine her calling her mom. Can you? I'm sure it's Coach or Coach Young or something, some kind of nickname.
We'll have to
anything
find
else.
out. We'll have to
100%. We're going to ask. Yeah.
that would be interesting. But the respect that Coach Young has from her players. I mean, when we went to the ACC tournament and all the alumni came back when they were hosting, and they just talked about, hey, she's serious. She is going to tell you what she thinks. She's going to work you hard. And the respect they have for her is pretty cool. So I think bringing in your daughter, you may get a softer side, or it might just go the complete opposite way to prove, hey, I'm not mom. But mention them being tested, their schedule. They go out to Clearwater. They have A&M, LSU, Oklahoma State, Georgia, Missouri. Then they go out to Mary Nutter, UCLA, Oklahoma, A&M again, Oregon. And it's just like, that's preseason. That's who they're playing in the preseason. So we will get a great test of where they're at. And that's why you definitely need some depth in the circle, because that offense and defense is going to hang with just about anybody.
Yeah, you got to get battle tested to see where you size up against the rest, right? And you want to be the best, you got to beat the best, or you got to play the best and then figure out how to beat them. So
absolutely.
That'll be a lot of fun. And then rounding out the top 5, we've got Virginia Tech. So how about our Hokies? Of course, led by Coach Pete Demore. He's in his 8th season now. So just really good stuff that we've seen from them the last couple of years.
Yeah, I think the biggest story is that Emma Limley has graduated. She was the workhorse for them since Keely Richard kind of passed the torch to her. And I think they ended last year with a bitter taste in their mouth down in Tuscaloosa. But I've seen some really, really good things from Emma Mazzarone. I mean, she throws hard. She started a game in regionals, so she has postseason starting experience. And then they also have Sophie Kleiman, and she sneaky pitcher that didn't get a lot of attention last year because obviously Emma Limley was there and Mazzarone was, kind of like her right-hand man. But I think Sophie Kleiman's going to do a great job in the circle. And they always are for the past several years, very steady in the circle. So I think that's going to be important. And they're bringing in a couple freshmen, Avery Layton, the Indiana Player of the Year, and Addison Fisher, pitcher from Tennessee, the 2A player and pitcher of the year. So I think they're just adding a couple more pitchers, but they did lose some offense. I mean, this is a home run hitting team. They've kind of had that identity for a while with Corey McMillan and Bree Peck. It's hard to really replace those kind of bats overnight.
Yeah, and Virginia Tech did lead the ACC in home runs last year with 112. And the numbers that they put up, again, just super impressive. Definitely the notable seniors graduating. However, we talk all the time about reloading, and We know that Virginia Tech has done a good job of that historically because they have had a couple of key players the last few seasons, just like obviously kind of rolling out through the program, graduating, and then we figure out how they bounce back. So the bounce back is going to be crucial. You're right. I love that for the last few years, it's been kind of like a three-headed monster with Virginia Tech in the circle because yes, it was Emma Lemley was the star, but Emma Mazzarone, Sophie Kleiman getting a lot of good time behind her too. So I just feel like it really was the success story of that 1, 2, 3 punch.
Yeah.
And going to them at any time.
Yeah, you mentioned it. You need more than one ace
You
if you
have
want to make
to.
a deep
Yeah.
run. And I think Kleiman and Mazzarone can definitely be a 1-2 punch for them. And they're bringing back Rachel Castine and Michelle
Mhm.
Chatfield, who I absolutely love
Yeah.
watching play last year, and Zoe Yeager and Jordan Lynch, who had double-digit home runs. So I think they're going to develop the players that maybe didn't put up the double-digit home runs and power numbers last year. I fully expect Virginia Tech to have great offense, as we've always seen. And I think giving Mazzarone the kind of the keys to the circle, right? Letting her own that moment is going to
Yeah.
give her even more confidence. And, Virginia Tech not making out of regionals past couple years since Rochard was there, right? I
Mhm.
think there's an expectation there too that, hey, I mean, back when they're at UCLA and Supers, they were like one play away from going to OKC, and they just still
Yeah.
hadn't been able to get back to Supers since then. So I think it's time for Virginia Tech to get back out there.
Yeah. Well, we're excited to see the Hokies and see the long ball continue, let the hitters hit, and go from there. I think that's one thing they've done really well the last several years. So definitely looking to see that trend continue. We have had some new faces in the conference. So a few coaching changes for Boston College. We got new leadership. And then for Cal, we got new leadership. And I do feel like Cal's hiring was probably the biggest in the conference. Britt, would you agree hiring Steve Singleton from Texas was a very big move?
Huge, huge. And that position was open for a while. It's like, who
Yeah.
are they going to hire? Like all these other places are filling their roles. Like Cal, they had something going really good with Cal for a while. Like they were
Yeah.
getting back to that national championship Cal pedigree that you make it back to the regionals, and they're back in postseason for a couple years. It's like Cal's on the up and up. They're coming around, and then things got messy.
Yeah.
And I don't know the details. I don't want to know the
Don't want to.
details.
Yeah.
And I just know that Chelsea Spencer was no longer there at Cal, and a team that just announced that they're building a new facility, new stadium, fires their head coach. They have 10 transfers after that happens of the core of their team. And it's like, who is Cal going to hire? And it
Yeah.
didn't happen. And then all of a sudden, here comes Steve Singleton. And I think that was a huge hire, great hire. I mean, he just won a national championship as associate head coach at Texas. And it's like, all right, Cal, you got somebody with the right resume. I'll say that.
Yeah.
Some people are meant to be assistant coaches. They thrive in that role. We haven't seen him as a head coach ever, but the resume, I don't think anybody can argue that this wasn't a tremendous hire for Cal.
I agree. So really excited to see how the Bears do and figure out kind of what that identity is going to be. Again, this is a very different team than we saw last season and from top to bottom.
Yeah, they have
Um,
15 new players, Alex.
yeah.
15. I mean, they don't have a stadium to play at this year.
Yeah.
They're playing at a couple ACC home games at different schools nearby, 15 new players. And it's like, why did Steve take the job? Like, you're going into the unknown. And I thought it was really interesting. He said that for us, this year is going to be about making sure that the foundation and culture and standards and expectations set, and said that we're not putting any labels on what this year needs to be. As
Love it.
long as we do that, we're going to take the approach with our heads down in the tunnel, and we're working. And by the time we lift our head, it's somewhere where we are excited to be. So I think that
Love it.
mindset is great for a coach coming in with a lot of unknowns. And he didn't bring anybody else in. All those transfers were already in there. And so I think it'll be interesting. It'll be an interesting story to watch Cal, and it's set up to be a great story if it can be.
I'm excited. And he's going to need a few years, right? Like we saw it with NC State and what Lindsay Leftwich is doing over there. Like you need time to build a program.
I don't
So
know. I think Kirk
you need it, but you
Cinetti in
don't always have it.
Indiana just ruined that narrative for a lot of coaches.
Okay. Well,
A lot, but completely different sports, completely
yeah.
different amount of millions of dollars poured into a
Yes.
team. But I really think Kirk Cinetti's really upset a lot of people out there being able to take Indiana to undefeated season in 2 years, but that's a whole different story.
Don't disagree, but NIL is different for those guys over there. So yeah, we'll talk about it when it's a little bit more
Yeah.
even.
Well,
How
I
about
don't know, Texas Tech?
okay? Yeah, you're right. You're right. Yeah, you're
But
right. All right, touche,
so, I
touche.
mean, no, it's true. He's got a lot of work to do, and to
Yeah.
take that job, you know that there's a lot of work to do. And he's from that area. I think that was a big draw for him, and he was able to hire his wife, who's a pitching coach, on staff. So I don't think you take that job unless you're fully committed
Mhm.
to a rebuild.
Absolutely. Yep. Got to be right. And ground zero, quite literally. So excited. There's been a lot of, like you said, investment financially into that program. So, really good place to start for them from a leadership perspective. But all right, should we get into preseason picks?
Yeah, they mean absolutely nothing, and we have no idea what's
We
gonna
have
happen.
no idea what
No
we're doing.
idea who's gonna show up, who's
Uh,
not, what's gonna happen, but it's a fun thing to do.
yeah.
So,
Why not?
all right, who do you think's gonna win the ACC?
I think Florida State's going to win the ACC right now.
Regular season?
Ask me in a month and a half.
Right now you got
Yeah.
Florida State, and I think that's a safe bet. I think with the amount of players they have returning in the circle in offense and defense, like they have their core coming back. Issa Torres, Jason McBeachum, Kennedy Harp. I mean, we could go on, and they expect to be the champions too. Clemson was my close second, but we just don't know how Abby and Sierra are going to pan out in the circle. But yeah, I think Florida State as well.
Okay. So we're on the same page for right now.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Player of the year. Who do you got?
So my
Ooh.
my top players, and this is a very limited list. I was thinking like Michelle Chatfield, Issa Torres, Mina Vega, Sanaa Thompson from UNC.
Yeah.
Those are the top off my head, but I think I'm leaning towards I'm going with Amina Vega. I just
Ooh.
think
Okay.
she will have the biggest impact on her team. Leadership she has, consistency she has had, and now that she's in a place to be the one, I think she will step up and be the one.
Okay. Love that pick. That's a good
But
one.
don't forget about Jessica Oakland there, Duke too. I think
Yeah.
she could be a sleeper for player of the year just because nobody has any film on her. Nobody
Yeah.
knows what to expect and may overlook her. So she's my dark horse.
Okay. Love it. All right. Again, we're gonna revisit this in like 4 weeks, maybe 6. Okay. Player of the year, I'm gonna go East Torres. I just feel like a lot like Vega, she's had a career of success. I mean, year after year to be in the positions that each of them are and have duplicated what they've done in different capacities, I think says a lot about their growth as players, their talent as players. I do think both of them similarly are raw talent wise, just some of the best in the country. And then you start mixing in smarts and the coaching that they get with that. And that's what makes them elite. So I am going to go Issa Torres. I do think she's another impactful player for Florida State.
Yeah, definitely an All-American
Yeah.
potential, another All-American season for her. All right, what you got in the circle?
I feel like I'm staying consistent here, tried and true. I'm staying with my Knowles. I think Jazzy Frantic is super unique. I'm going to go Frantic. And I'm going to go Frantic because I think she's one of the most disgusting junk pitchers. And I don't know about you, I hated junk. I was like, give me speed all day. Give me even speed with like a changeup. Sure, I'll like eliminate, pick one, whatever. But she's got like 4 or 5 different disgusting slow pitches that move. And like, that's just not my jam. So I almost picked her because as a hitter, I would hate facing her.
Yeah. And I
So,
think you could have the worst swing in the world, but if you're on time, you can make things happen, right? And
yeah.
she does not allow hitters to be on time. And I think she was a close second to pitcher of the year last year as a freshman.
Yeah.
She just came out and dominated, but she didn't have enough innings for postseason awards, right?
I know.
They
Yeah.
split all that up amongst their pitchers, and I think that's good long term for her, right?
Yeah.
But she definitely, by the end of the year, was the number one on that staff for sure. I like that pick. I think it's a great pick. My heart is telling me that Abby Dunning is going to do something amazing working with Kyle Jamison, but having a year off and not knowing, you can't put all my eggs in that basket. And then Cassidy Curd, I mean,
Yep.
she took a team to the World Series. I mean, what she did up in the zoo 2 years ago to get to OKC was incredible. And, we just saw her last year, like 20 wild pitches. There's just something not so. If she gets healthy, she gets back, she's going to have a great year. And then Emma Razarone, we know what she can do. But I hate to agree with you, but I'm preseason, just from what we know.
Okay, I like it. Wow. And yeah, for anybody watching, we obviously didn't discuss this before, so this was like a blind draw.
And you just heard my head working through.
I love it.
I was undecided until now.
I love it. But I like how we're also prefacing it of like, we have no idea what we're doing and we're
This
just
means
going off of what we know.
It means all these preseason rankings, trash. I mean,
trash.
You go back to football.
Yeah.
It's just all Indiana. Preseason doesn't mean anything, but it's fun. It's fun.
It's fun.
That's why we do it, because we are excited and we want to talk about it and we want to hand out some flowers. Maybe if we're right, we can be like, hey, I told you so, but most likely not. Not until we see the product on the field.
So true.
But,
so true.
All right, going into what I'm excited about is our BS or no BS with AP. So there's we'll do this every week, and there's going to be new storylines and new things that we hear around the softball world. But through this off season, I've come up with 3, and we haven't discussed these. So, Alex, is this BS or is this no BS? Texas Tech will be the biggest bust in softball if they don't win it all this year.
That's no BS. I feel like the financial investment into that program, the way that I say like recruited, obviously all these colleges and things get players because of recruitment. I feel like Texas Tech has gotten a lot of their players because of money and because of NIL opportunities, right?
Good.
And because I have 100%, right? Like people are drinking the Kool-Aid. So I feel like Texas Tech has capitalized on that. So if they don't, I feel like it's the biggest bust all the way around. Like, I'm sorry, you've spent all this money, go win a natty. Let's see it. Because maybe that's where the rest of the teams and programs need to get to. So I want to see the money talk.
And I think their transfer class, once again this year, was just
insane.
They've got
insane.
They didn't have the support for Nija last year.
Yeah.
And I think they got it this year.
Yeah.
So
go pick up some SEC opponents and all the things. All right, let's see.
If Texas Tech doesn't win it all, it's a bust. It is a bust. All right, second one. Now we're going to switch gears a little bit. This is a rule change year. There's some different rule changes. So for you, the one that everybody's been talking about and personally is driving me crazy. So I want to ask you, is it BS or no BS? The double first base that will be required this year will prevent collisions at first base.
I was torn. I will say I was torn. I'm going to preface this by saying it would be BS, in my opinion, if I thought it was solely based on skill. Like, I think part of me is like, no, play the game the right way. You don't have the collisions. You don't have the whatever. I'm going to say no BS because I think the speed of the game is a lot of the time too a factor in these collisions because everything's so short, consolidated, and quick. It's very different than baseball. And that's how I was trying to ration this of like the one thing in baseball, like you just have that split second to get your feet underneath you defensively sometimes, right? Most of the time. You kind of get that gather. You get all the things that are done a little bit more accurately. Even though we see balls sail. Softball, you don't have that time. Not saying it's harder. You don't have the time. So therefore, I feel like there's more contact at first. So I think that it will help. I do think it will help. Obviously, the egregious ones, like sometimes you just can't. If the throw is that bad, it's going to take you to the baseline. Hopefully, it helps on the more simplistic plays and you don't have contact. Like I've seen torn ACLs, I've seen broken ankles, I've seen obviously sprained knees and ankles just because of simple contact when it could have been avoided. So hopefully it clears the smaller stuff. And I still think your big impacts, your big collisions are still going to happen.
Yep.
What do you think?
So according to you, yes, no BS that double first base is going to help or is going to prevent collisions at first base. And I think what you said at the end there, it's not going to prevent all of them. We're still going to have collisions at first base. I was always against it, but if it's the health and safety, If it's going to prevent one injury and prolong a career for a player, yes. You know what? Fine. I'll look at that ugly bag on the field and I'll get used to it. And then in a couple of years, I won't even notice it. Right? To me, I think it'll be really interesting how many issues we have with the double first base. As much as we have issues with obstruction, which we're still going to have issues with obstruction this year because they fine-tuned the rule, but it didn't really change much. But there's going to be issues with, and I hope coaches this preseason have been talking about it more than once a week. Running through a bag, running through the double first base, and then returning to the orange
That's
bag.
what I wanted to ask
And then
you.
there's
Yeah.
going to be an out. And then,
Yep.
there's just going to be so many things. If she steps on the wrong bag, we stepped on that bag, you're going to be safe, you're going to be out. It's going to cause a learning curve. But hey, if we're preventing injuries, let's do that. But there's going to be some messy situations.
We're going to come back to that one for sure. We don't need to dive into it now. And I know it's Little League. It's not college softball, but that was one of the biggest things in Little League that we both got to cover this past year, I guess last year, was the return. So you run through the bag, the orange bag, and then you return. Are you returning on the orange bag that is not in the field of play, or are you returning on the white bag that is in the field of play? We'll get deeper into that. I'm sure it will be an issue a couple of times throughout the year in some probably pretty big situations. So can't wait to revisit that one.
I'm just going to tell you now, once you touch that bag, the orange bag or whatever color bag it is, pretend it's not there anymore.
It's not there. Exactly. It doesn't exist.
All right, our last BS or no BS with AP. And this one came from me because I started the show off by saying this is going to be the best year for the ACC of all time. So a little background, ACC has had 13 total appearances in the Women's College World Series, 3 title games, 1 championship, and 3 teams have been there, Florida State, Virginia Tech, and Duke. Never at the same time. So is it BS or no BS? The ACC will have more than 1 team in the Women's College World Series for the first time this year.
Prayers that it's no BS, because would love to see Florida State there sitting at the top of the conference right now. Would love to see another team get there. My money would be on Duke, Virginia Tech, Stanford, or Clemson. Clemson, you were so good last year. Would love to see them continue that momentum. Duke has the experience. Virginia Tech's always like a fighting chance. And then Stanford, you're still so new to the conference that it's just like, I don't know, they're so good, right? But then it's like historically, they just don't come to mind when you think about their opportunities. And now it's like, all right, let's freaking go.
Yeah.
So it could be the year. No BS. No BS. No BS.
Is going to have more than 1 team for the first time ever. And just to piggyback off of that, I think why I also hate preseason rankings is because we don't know what's going to happen, but then we play teams that's ranked high and then you lose to them or beat them and then they drop later and then that's going to hurt you in the RPI at the end of the season. I think what really hurt the ACC last year with Florida State is Clemson is how they paired up in supers. They got the 2 teams playing for the national championship. So for the teams that want to be in Oklahoma City, every single game matters starting in February. Even though we said they're going to be completely different teams, when you're looking at postseason rankings and wanting to set yourself up into a position to go to the College World Series, every single game matters to get a good seed.
Yeah, it has to. And that's why every single one's important. And you just go from there, right? You got to have a short-term memory, but you fight, you play it, and then you move on.
Yep.
So.
And speaking of starting off hot, we'll take a look at what to watch for this weekend. We are diving right in. I know you're calling a lot of games. You have Duke at UCF, right? So that's awesome. Duke also plays BU. I want you to watch Casey Ricard down there for BU pitcher. Lights out, one of the best. I'm also excited about Clemson down at the NFCA Leadoff Classic. They play February 6th against Oregon. Virginia Tech is playing South Carolina, which I think is going to be a really good test for both those teams. I mean, South Carolina making it within 1 out to go to the World Series, lost to UCLA. They graduated a ton of people. What's Virginia Tech without Emma Limley going against South Carolina? I think that's a big game. Stanford, 2 games against Oklahoma State, I think is going to be really good for them. And then they also play Cal out of conference. So we get to look at the brand new team from Cal So there's some good games, and there's a couple more on there, but to me, those were the highlights.
Yeah, you've got to really stack that preseason up or just like anytime you get before conference, right? As to how good a teams can I play early on because I want this to be the toughest schedule and you have to. And granted, now the conference games are a little bit better. And so you have a little bit more of that fighting chance with RPI, but still you got to load it up on the front half of the season.
Yeah, I think they have. You look, Georgia Tech's got Alabama, Florida State's got Liberty, both postseason super regional teams. I think we're going to be tested early, and I hope that, and I think they will. I think the ACC will make a nice opening statement. Opening weekend, and it's opening weekend. Let's go.
I know. Can't wait. Let's go. 2026 season is here, and we are ready. And I'm excited for the next couple of weeks and covering all things ACC softball.
And we're off. See you next week.
Bye.